what I see it from the perspective of how we are moving in the world is like, though we have a lot of technology and digitalization is happening, we intend to move away from the basic processes. I think that is where the gaps are being now seen in last couple of years. And I think my advice will be the new grads or new people coming into the field is to have their basic sounds so that they can be able to process these things very faster way so that all the tick box in the way the processes get mapped, they are in the system so that they can evaluate further in their career to move in the analytics or digital movement or anything sort of that. So keep the basics right, understand the processes of the industry, different type of industry.
Thank you so much for joining another edition of the Never-Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by Ajay Singh. And Ajay is a absolute supply chain enthusiast. He has just a few years of experience, and he is passionate about giving back and learning and teaching what he's learned to help all of you. And that's what this whole podcast is about. Ajay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much having me in the show. I think I love your the way you introduced me. I have a little bit experience of 3 decades and
Just a little bit.
uh, still learning, still learning. So
Yes.
because this is a very vast topic, very vast subject in the domain of supply chain management, and every day is learning for us and the people who across countries wherever people are handling the supply chain, they know about much better that how every day is a learning for us. And I think we are improving a lot in the context of all the tariffs, the issues happening across the globe.
Yep.
I think this is a new learning for all of us, I think. And
I'm
really, it is a pleasure to have in your show.
Oh, likewise, Ajay. I love the humility and the curiosity that go together. It's such a powerful combination. And I think as long as people in supply chain keep that I don't know everything mixed with the curiosity to go and really deeply understand things, that is such a powerful combination. When we're thinking about warehousing in general, there's often a misconception that if somebody's seen a warehouse in an e-commerce or light industrial sort of way, that they've kind of seen all the warehouses. But this really isn't the catch because there's so many different flavors of warehouses, especially when we get into different commodities and different things that are perishable, for instance, are very different from e-commerce. One first in, first out matters, and the other one less so. Can you break it down for us? What are the basic kinds of warehouses and what are the key differences?
So when we talk about a different type of warehousing, I think, as you rightly said, the myth about having only seeing on everywhere about the e-commerce warehousing, but reality is not like that. You have a where the source of manufacturing is coming, that is the source of every product availability, and I think we need to see it how the source of these warehouses are coming from. I think there are various types of warehousing we see in all the seven vertical of the industry, whether it is heavy industry, whether it is chemicals, whether it is a pharmaceutical, whether it is electronics, telecom, or e-commerce. So every segment of this warehousing is totally different and the way it is being handled. What we see in e-commerce is like always a flavor of on the top availability of precise time within seconds, whereas in chemical and perishable or in pharmaceutical, you see the velocity you'll be like handling how you're handling this product in a very specific way, whether it is a hazardous material, non-hazardous material, material with a temperature sensitive, material with a batch. And I think this type of thing which always categorize itself with a different type of warehousing. When it comes to a telecom or any other product of industry, where also I have seen it, the sensitivity of having this humidity, temperature control, those type of warehousing is totally different. Where you have a warehousing requirement as such is that how you can safeguard your products so that it goes in as a product in the market to work in a different way. So that categorizing this, it is a very different way, and different industry has a different warehousing aspects.
I love that. And I think the clarity of there's so many different flavors of warehouses, and depending on where something is in the world, where I live in Calgary, it's pretty dry almost all year round. But where you live in Mumbai, it's pretty humid.
Yeah.
And it's a lot warmer almost all year round. I don't think you have much skiing in Mumbai.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. We just dream about it.
I'm imagining that this kind of quick way to remember, with that little bit of the humility and a little bit of the curiosity, even if it's an industrial warehouse, sometimes with chemicals and glues and adhesives, even film, need to be within a certain range of temperature. And I think within transportation, if you're shipping frozen shrimp, it needs to be at minus 18 Celsius, right? And if you're shipping drywall compound for construction, even this ends up being temperature controlled to make sure
Right.
that it doesn't freeze, because then it's no good. And I think the warehousing and the transportation, it's so easy to overlook how many of these commodities that we take for granted have all been carefully and painstakingly managed and cared for all the way through a supply chain. And it's not just for food.
Right. So if you see from that aspect, I think giving an example from my own industry, I think various product we deal with where warehousing requirement is -4 degree temperature going up to 30 degree temperature. So it has its own impacts and how you take care of this product, because all across your product life cycle, it has to move a product from -4 and keeping same sensitivity of temperature going 1,000 miles away within Indian territory. Because if you see it, as you said, the climate is totally different in the western part of India where I sit it, and it is from the southern side of India. So it is totally different. And then you have to maintain all across the movement of these goods at certain temperatures and keeping storage facilities across all the places, because you will not find same type of warehouses across availability within India. Then we need to manage it, your transportation, storage of this goods at that critical nature, and that is where you need to have your partners coming into it, where they work flawlessly with you to see that the things are being driven across in the supply chain. I think that is the beauty of considering all the facts of this the inventory or warehouse management system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so easy to forget sometimes when we live somewhere and we're accustomed to that, that if you're shipping something from Mumbai to Noida or to Kerala, or if you're shipping something from Calgary to Mexico City, or from Oslo in Norway to Portugal, these are very, very different climates. And it's not just the movement, but something as a temperature control that you sometimes have, and there's probably a few lessons learned here, where chemicals can be left outside in one location, they need to be in a temperature controlled warehouse in another location.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so the venue for one needs to be indoors in one city, and it's just fine if it's sitting outside in the sun in another city. Even for chemicals, for some of these other products, these are some of the things I think they're very easy to overlook. And that curiosity about where the other location is, and it's a different way of thinking for some people that are new to supply chain. They can look out their window and go, "Oh, I see what's going on," but they need to look out the window, 1,000 miles, 1,000 kilometers away, 5,000 kilometers away. And it's a different way of imagining how something moves through the supply chain. And I think this is something that sometimes people that are new to supply chain, it's almost like a failure of imagination, right? Because they haven't forced
Absolutely.
themselves to imagine what are all the conditions that something is going to go through, or what works here might not work where we're going to ship it. And then this creates other challenges. The daytime high temperature in Dubai is very different from the daytime
Very
high
different.
temperature in Calgary.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. I think one basic point I think we need to understand is uh, in supply chain, what we carry is around 60 to 80% of the cost of the material we are carrying. So that always be there in our mind always, that okay, any losses will be a huge losses for the organization, and
Yeah,
we are responsible for 60 to 80% of the cost of the complete product.
yeah.
And if that comes in mind, then I think you can do everything for that to
Yeah,
safeguard.
it's the hey, I'm taking care of the house, right? You know, we're taking care of the precious goods,
Absolutely.
and across different businesses, across the supply chain, that kind
Right.
of mindset is so important. And people that are new to supply chain, I find sometimes they go, "Oh, that's somebody else," or "Oh, I didn't think of it that way." And these, I think, are those powerful reminders of the things that really matter. Speaking of things that matter, I find the reusability and reusable components, reusable packaging, and even the amount of plastic that we're using in the supply chain, where you've got a choice between some of the paper-based products that can be easily recycled or composted, or some of the plastic components that are harder. These start to create some really interesting cost savings and environmental benefits when we can find those reusable pallets. We can find those other types of either recyclable or lower impact packaging. What can you share that people would learn from, that would really help somebody really consider or think differently, think more effectively about that reusability component in warehousing and supply chain?
I think it is a very valid question, and I think it is uh, very much required in today's context, because when we are moving toward the sustainability, and every country and every organization is talking about sustainability and ESG in 2030, 2050. I think the reusability of the pallets, the boxes, and all this circular economy, I think that is very important. And what we have been doing since last couple of years, reusability of these pallets. I think we have gone ahead with testing of these pallets made out of bamboo composite within India. I think that has been, and it has been tested at workload of 1,000 kg. It is just equivalent to a plastic or a steel pallet, which can be sustainable and can be reusable and can be very easily disposed of. That is one part. Secondly, what we also have started doing it, using this palette as a circular and the movement, working with our customers and supplier both the sides, so that at least we'll have usability of this in multiple times, not having just using it and throwing it away.
Yeah.
It'll harmful for the whole sustainable environment. So we started doing it reusable of the pallets, which is coming from our supplier for our storage processes, and same thing, we are also using it for the export to the other countries, depending upon the customers. And we have taken both the partner side together in our whole conversation, right?
Love it.
Supplier at one side, customer at one side, so that at least we all are combined, and because everybody is working on this sustainable movement some or other way. So I
Yep.
think that is the way I think we can use. We also started looking at very sustainable packaging products, which are like usable and can be the plastics and all, because we have a EPR rules coming in a lot. So how we can eliminate the plastic part of it, how we can start using the packaging which are more sustainable. So we were driven it. I'll not say we are at 100%, but still we are halfway mark to implement all these things. I think we are in right path to implement all these things on year and year basis, month on month basis.
That's amazing. When we think back, even a few decades, it was, hey, make the packaging cheaper, make it faster. But then when we're finding those bits of packaging in places that they don't belong and they're not decomposing because they're going to be there for a very long time, the the
Right.
the impact on the world that we're leaving for our kids is so, so beautiful. Like when I think about the never ending climb, it's about leaving the world better than we found it and creating the best version of ourselves to help unlock that. And when we're leaving the world better than we found it with something as simple as the everyday packaging, this is such a beautiful thing because it compounds, and it compounds every day across every purchase across other companies. And it's a really, really powerful movement, and I'm very, very
Right.
excited for that. The benefit for all of our kids and grandkids, and I don't have any grandkids yet, but like that's is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I thank you for helping make that change happen. I think the next thought around this never-ending climb that I keep talking about, and how to create the best version of ourselves to go and unlock this possibility for all the people that we know, love, and care about, this comes back to that humility and that learning. Can you help share with us a little bit about how you look at that continuous learning and how you're giving back to emerging leaders in supply chain to help them learn?
So what we I do is like every day, as I said in the beginning, every day is learning for us. So I do a lot of learning with the people who are in the soft floors, doing handling of this warehousing, handling this material handling equipments, and doing all the stuff right from the gate inward to get outward. That is one part of it, and then a lot of stuffs are being there where we need to communicate each other, do everything, every like small project on the Kaizen projects and small projects being done. I think that brings a lot of innovation thought process at the software level, which brings into learning processes. I think we can learn a lot on this. Secondly, when it comes to a wider society, I think one of my passion is to teach the supply chain subjects on the various universities and forums within across Mumbai and Pune region in the western part, where I teach new subjects with the case studies from what we are day in day out we are doing in the industry. Like one is very favorite topic for me is a whole topic on the digital supply chain, how we are transforming from a paper to paperless offices, how AI algorithms, ML, and how this thing been going to affect the industry, and how the new students who are really looking into this topic on the supply chain management, how they see a change happening right from the bookish thing to a real network of like analytical part of it, and making the career in supply chain management. I think that is where the breeze is there a lot. If I'm seeing in the subcontinent, there a lot of gap carrier between expertise which we want to have in our team versus what the new grads coming in from the colleges. I think that is where
Yeah,
our role is to at least go back and tell them this is here, this is what is going on currently in the industry, and you should be equipped with that before you comes into the real professional world. I think that is the
absolutely.
gap we that is where my role is coming into it. Yeah.
What I love about this is the idea of there's an opportunity. A friend of mine is working on creating this apprentice, right? And sometimes in building or in plumbing or electrical, it might be normal to consider the idea of an apprentice. But I think the idea of an apprentice that he's working on is such a beautiful concept in supply chain, in warehousing, in these different functions, because so many people come out of whichever supply chain management credential or certification program, and then they walk into the warehouse and they seem lost.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
creating the opportunity for them to understand and build some of that more practical understanding, build some of that practical application, I think is beautiful. So anywhere that we have the opportunities to share that and to support that is a wonderful thing. If you had some advice for somebody that's just considering supply chain as a longer term profession, because I think it is one of those professions where it's going to be quite a while before, AI is going to be, supporting, replacing a lot of
Completely. Yeah.
things, but there are key components of supply chain to really understand what's going on the ground and to translate and to be a supervisor for the new technology that's coming in. I think that's an area where there's still a lot of runway. What would you encourage people to do to go and get themselves ready for either getting early into the career or as they're getting into the earlier stages to really stay current, to stay meaningful and relevant?
So, what I see it from the perspective of how we are moving in the world is like, though we have a lot of technology and digitalization is happening, we intend to move away from the basic processes. I think that is where the gaps are being now seen in last couple of years. And I think my advice will be the new grads or new people coming into the field is to have their basic sounds so that they can be able to process these things very faster way, so that all the tick box in the way the processes get mapped, they are in the system so that they can evaluate further in their career to move in the analytics or digital movement or anything sort of that. So keep the basics right, understand the processes of the industry, different type of industry, and supply chain as a field is a very vast domain. I think the topic it comes right from warehousing to logistics to statutory control to procurement, sourcing. So you end of the sub functions are there. So you have to keep on learning those areas, those are interconnected, and make your career accordingly so that you move the ladder in a way that okay, you are giving a organization a best result, and you are getting a reward for that. I think that is the best way to do that.
I love that. And I think as you're getting out there and learning, we start to find that the old warehouse of rows and rows and rows, I mean, there's some more modern shapes. Can you take just one moment just before we wrap up, just to share a little bit about things that we used to believe were default for how a warehouse would be laid out and what some of the more efficient layouts are, just as one quick example for what good looks like today?
So it has traditionally it has moved from a small warehouses format to multi level of warehousing because of the space constraint, because of the efficiency of the warehouses. Because what I have seen in couple of it last decade, the warehousing even in the chemical sector and other precise industry also has moved in a vertical way. Like you have racking system goes from a G plus 9 or 10 racking system where you have aisle masters or other MHEs can be used to have the retrieval and storage processes. I think very generosity of having your every storages or every rack system is having with the QR code or label codes or this the storage where you can retrieve material very fast. I think that is the way I think the transformation happened in last decade. I think it is a transformation move from a traditional warehouse to a new technology in the warehouses. I think it is a very methodical way of movement because what I have seen in 30 years back was using this cardiac system of the papers being used in the west warehouses with 1 plus 2, 1 plus 3 racking system, wastage of the this warehouse space and also that is, I think it has moved a long way. I think that is where we can have the pick and places and we can optimize the warehousing in a way that it really shapes the entire efficiency and productivity.
Absolutely. And it's really powerful when we start to look at the more efficient layouts for warehouses. And I think this is where it starts to get into the 202 and 303 kind of level courses. Um, Ajay, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for what you do for the industry, for the supply chain more broadly, for helping, sharing, and helping people learn. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you having me in the show, and I think I love it the way the conversation has went, and I think whatever little way I'm able to support the the supply chain professionals in the way, I think I really love it. Thank you.
Uh, Likewise, shukriya, Ajay. And
Thank you.
for
Thank you
all of
very
you watching today, this has been another edition of The Never Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. We'll see you next week.